Well, that was dramatic. Yeah, I didn't mean to be that dramatic with that part. But anyways, all right, so this is a video of comparing the van that I'm sitting in right now, which was, I just released the tour of it. I released the beginning to finished build of it all. I have a build series on this van. I just released the cost breakdown of this van. It's just like, this is the culmination of pretty much everything when it comes to this van. I wanted to do this video in particular because there are so many people that have recently contacted me or commented or messaged or whatever it may be that really had questions on, hey, your van is beautiful, but is there a way for me to do things cheaper? That style is really not what I'm looking for, or something along those lines. Guys, this is what van life is all about, and we're gonna get into all that right now. So let's buckle our seatbelts, no pun intended there, or is there a pun intended? Let's dive into all of this just right now. Here we go. As you guys can see, I am ready to go with my Matt Foley t-shirt on. If you guys are new to my page, consider subscribing. And what I do here is I live in this van called Ghost. I've lived the van lifestyle for about 3 years now, and I've lived full-time in both vans. The first van for 2 years, this one for almost a year now. I built the first one with my father, no help at all whatsoever, and then I built the second one. I call it a DIY assist build, which was a DIY built van, but we had professionals help us in certain areas that I felt that I didn't want to tackle yet again and give myself that much of a headache and take that many years off my life. I don't just live in a van. I am now consulting for van life and van life related things, building and designing. I do have a degree in architectural engineering, so I try to help out as many people as I can during that process. I do phone consultations, but also something I'm really excited about is I am now with the Reachable app, which is an app service that offers, like, I guess, a consulting one-on-one texting conversation with me. I have 2 links that I'll put in below. There's a trial link as well as a link to see my packages and things like that for the Reachable app, so check all that out. Now that that is all taken care of, let's get into what this video is really about, because this video is going to have a lot of footage from this current build that I'm in, as well as footage from my my first van. I wanted to show everybody out there that you can do a van for a lot less money, as well as do it for more, which I have currently now. How I started out, because I don't come from money, I don't have a lot of money, I just saved and I invested my money where I wanted to properly. I want to talk about how this all started. This was a passion of mine. I wanted to get out of paying rent, was really my biggest, I guess my biggest reason why I got into van life. But I wanted to go and see the country more. I wanted to travel more, and I wanted to, like I said earlier, I wanted to do more stand-up comedy. I wanted to travel, and I wanted to get into entertainment, which was really my end-all be-all goal. Van life entered at a random time in my life, and it just kind of worked out, and a bunch of bells were going off, like. And I just was like, you know what? I have a design degree. Why don't I go and put it to good use? I remember calling up my dad after I watched some van life videos, and I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. And he was like, yeah, let's do it together. I spent 6 months at that point saving money, and I worked 2 full-time jobs. I saved up what I thought was enough money, but it turns out it wasn't. During that time, one of those jobs was an overnight position where I sat pretty bored, but I got my hourly rate, and I did research during an overnight position at a hotel. At the end of the 6 months, it wasn't even 6 months, it might have been like 4. But anyways, I worked 2 full-time jobs, which sucked. I left town, I left Los Angeles to go to Boston, and I was hoping not have to work for 3 months, but it turns out I didn't save up enough money, and I had to actually work a full-time job while building my first van. It is what it is. It's some of the sacrifices that we have to do, so that's something that you guys all have to decide as well. When building a van, are you going to take that time off of work, or are you going to work on nights and weekends? Or if your day job is a night job, well, you're going to wake up early and get your job done, or your work done, and then go to work. It is a lot to do, and it is something that doesn't happen overnight. Some people spend 6 months on a build, some people spend a year on a van build. It really just depends on what you want and what you want out of it. I will say to anybody out there, take your time. Do not rush. Van life isn't going anywhere. Doesn't matter if you get done by this day or this day or this day, whatever it is. So You're going to be able to enjoy all the weather, all the beach shots, all the mountain shots that everybody does out there. But there's also some realness to van life, which I'm going to do in another video on a later day, because there's a lot of realness that people don't show on YouTube and like on Instagram or things like that. What is the hardship of van life? Because there is a lot of hardship. So it really depends on what you like and what you don't want to do. What are the two differences between the two vans? I'm going to start at the obvious that the first one was a ProMaster and the second one was a Sprinter. I can kind of dive into each one of these categories as its own video, so I'm going to try and give the quick rendition of each of these categories. But the ProMaster to me is a lot less in money. That's obvious. One's like, the ProMaster is like 32 grand and the Sprinter's like 45 to 50 depending on the model you get, and it can be even higher at like 60, 65 if you're going to go 4x4. For my first van, I actually wanted a Sprinter. I couldn't afford it, so I went within my means. Within my means was a ProMaster. Within my means was the design and layout I did. Within my means was the power system that I did. I knew going into my second van that I not only fell in love with van life, I wanted to put all my cards in. I really wanted to really spend my entire savings, because I knew I loved this lifestyle so much that I was okay with spending the money I spent on the second van. So go into it knowing what you're going to be spending. Have a budget, try to stick to it as best you can. On my first van, I expected to spend around $10,000, and I spent at first like 10 or 11,000, and then I put a couple more thousand into it over the 2-year span into the build portion of it. Why the ProMaster? It had front-wheel drive. I think it's a better city-dwelling car than the Sprinter is. Van. The ProMaster, to me, the one that I had, was a little too big. I had the 159-inch wheelbase, which is about 12 feet of cargo space. And after living in it for 2 years, I really didn't need that much space. I had a ton of storage, which I'll get into. And I just felt like the 144 Sprinter was the perfect size for a single person. That's all. So I wanted to downsize. The 144 Sprinter fits perfectly into a spot. It's like 18 and a half feet bumper to bumper, which is like ridiculous, or 19 feet, whatever it is. The 159 ProMaster is what, like 21 and a half feet, something like that. Is a foot really that big a difference? It actually is, believe it or not. So I also wanted a diesel, which is why I went to Sprinter. The diesel engines are a little bit stronger, a little bit powerful, a little bit lasting longer. A lot of you out there are going to be like, well, the Sprinter costs more over time, so your maintenance is going to be, guys, these are Mercedes. They're top engineered vehicles. Go and drive a Sprinter and go and drive a ProMaster, and if you're interested, probably Transit. But these are the two vans I'm talking about. I'm telling you right now, when you drive a Sprinter, you're going to realize, I want the Sprinter. Do you want to spend the extra $10,000 or $12,000 or $15,000 on the van? That's really up to you to decide. I can't make that decision for you, but I can tell you this right now. I always wanted a Sprinter. The first one, I went with a ProMaster because it made sense. That's all. I do like the front wheel drive of the ProMaster. I do like how there's no drive shaft going down the middle of the van, so there's a lot of stuff you can put underneath the van. The ProMaster is a great van for van life, by the way. I just wanted to say that. Just wanted a diesel. ProMasters are also easier to build inside of. They're a lot more square than the Sprinters are, and definitely more than the Transit. So also take that into consideration as well. Now, coming into the van, let's start obviously on bare bones. I don't have any issues with either one of these installations. I went with a rigid foam board or a polyiso foam board on my first van, and then I used like the spray cans to seal the cracks on the outside of it. I felt they were really good. The installation job was actually really good. It wasn't drafty. And then my second van, I did the wool insulation. And then again, I put rattle trap on both of them to help with the rattling of the metal. If I was to change anything, this is actually big, I would actually change my insulation process. I have recently learned doing a layered system is probably the best way to insulate your van. Now, it's very hard to keep the hot air out. If it's 90 degrees outside and you're in a van with no insulation, it's going to be like 120 inside in like the hot sun, desert, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's going to be hotter inside than it is outside. The best thing you can do to keep your inside temperature the same as the outside temperature. So really, if you put in some good insulation, especially a layered insulation, or even what I have is wool is great. The sun beating down on your van, it won't warm up the inside. It'll just keep it at a steady state, whatever the outside temperature is. So if it's 90 outside, it's more than likely gonna be 90 inside. Now, if you have cross ventilation, cross breezing, the roof fan going, it could stay a little bit cooler inside your van. Obviously windows, they don't help that situation because they magnify the inside. So my first van was actually a little bit cooler than my second van, but I also have cross ventilation. I also chase weather here. I go to cooler places during hotter months. And then when it comes to wintertime, I have like the best heater on market. So I have really no issues there. So because the insulation is actually good in my second van, it keeps that hot air inside. If or when I get a cooling apparatus, an air conditioner, then it will stay cool inside as well. There's going to be questions, you know, am I getting an air conditioning or is there an air conditioning on the market? I prefer to do the 12 volt AC, which is the Cruise and Comfort model. I'm getting a version of that, but like on steroids, if I do get it. It is expensive. It's like $4,500. Is it worth it? It's totally up to you. All right, so the bulk of this video is going to be predominantly about the layout, why I chose what I chose, and then also the electrical, because those are the two biggest differences, I would say, and maybe the heating system. The layout of my first van is your standard platform bed in the back, which you can sleep across in the ProMaster, which is why I did it that way. Your standard bench, countertop, and a shower. Done, boom, whatever, okay? Call it a day. My second van, which I'm sitting in now, behind me, I got a Murphy bed. I have a large amount of counter space, roughly 10 feet. I have a shower that's kind of hidden, that's over there. And I have way less storage in my first van compared to my second van. So why the heck did I change everything? The first van, you realize when you do compact your entire life into a van that's, you know, between 60 and 70 square feet, you realize very quickly what you do need and what you don't need. About a year into it, I realized I don't need this much space that was inside my ProMaster, which is about 12 feet, 12 and a half feet. And then I wanted something to challenge myself. I wanted to see if I could also have the same room and spacious feel from my first van to my second van. So I always wanted to do a Murphy bed, and a lot of you out there maybe like got that idea from Buck SD. I actually wanted to do a Murphy bed in my first van. I just didn't have the know-how or the means to really do so. Was it inspiration to put a Murphy bed in there? Yeah, I mean, me and Brennan are good friends, and I wanted to do a Murphy bed. I've seen other Murphy beds in vans. It just is what it is. To be honest with you, my original inspiration to do a new van was actually Wes and Savannah's first van, our_land yacht. They showed me their van at Tiny Fest Northwest last year, over a year ago, and I saw their van and I just actually wanted all their systems. I wanted the heating and I wanted all their electrical. So that was really more my inspiration. I put my van up for sale about a month after I met them, and we actually started the talks of me building this van after meeting them. So really, I'll give them credit for giving me the inspiration to do a second van build, because I had no intentions. So layout wise, I knew that I wanted windows in my second van, and my first van had no windows at all. So why did I not have windows? For a couple different reasons. Number one, insulation purposes. You know, you lose a lot of heat on the inside, and you also gain a lot of heat in the summertime through windows. So you have to keep that in mind, because you know, windows, that's what windows cause that effect. I don't know what to tell you. I chose to do windows on my second van because I felt like I was going to be a little bit more adventuring, and I could take down the window covers. I knew I wanted also a little bit more light in. Again, I was going to be adventuring more. My first van, I would say that I was about 90-10. 90% was in the city, 10% adventuring. My goal in 2020 for this van is to be more like a 50-50 or a 60-40. 60% city, 40% adventuring. And when you're adventuring, you can take your freaking covers down, you can have fun with friends, you can be out, blah, 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 whatever. That was really my inspiration. That I also wanted a little more cross ventilation. You got the roof vent. I have my sliding windows now. That was all thought about as well during the outside window process. Why I switched from platform bed to Murphy bed. Okay. Platform bed is, if I was to do another van, depending on the spacage. So if you're in a 159 ProMaster, I would say hands down do a platform bed. If you have two people living in a space, I would also say platform bed. Why is that? When you have a platform bed, if you have two people, then it might makes sense because somebody might still be in bed while you're out and about doing something in the kitchen. That's a huge thing if you have 2 people in the van. I wanted the least amount to do something. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, I didn't want to like put down a table and move the cushions to make a bed. That was my whole thought behind the platform bed, and actually, technically, my thought behind the Murphy bed. The least I can do, the better, which is great. Having a big space like that, you know, there's a whole bunch of storage underneath as well. So I knew that I wanted just a whole bunch of storage for a bunch of stuff. Again, I didn't downsize all that much until about a year into my van life. So I didn't know exactly what I needed and what I didn't need, and what I did need and what I didn't need. So, you know, that takes time. It takes time to figure that out. Love the platform bed. And my Murphy bed I love because the Murphy bed for me, I now get to separate a bedroom space into a living space. When I get up in the morning, you know, arrange my bed and then I flip it up, it's so nice at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day, I get to crawl in the bed and be in that bedroom mode, bedroom space. When the platform bed was there, I felt a little lazy because I was just like, I crawl in the bed, you know, and that's just how it was. With the Murphy bed, it's like, well, I should get some work done, and I'm sitting here at my seating area. You know, when people come into your van and they want to like hang out with you and have a beer or whatever it may be, you guys can sit from across from each other. I have my swivel now too. You know, we can sit around and hang out. And where's your bedroom? Well, my bedroom is in the other room. It's in the Murphy bed. So that's really the whole like thought behind it all. Murphy beds are actually a lot easier than you think. It just comes down to design and size. I got another tour of a Murphy bed actually coming up pretty soon. So definitely stay tuned for that. It's really cool and really interesting. You know, the seating area, I wanted to kind of upgrade. This, you know, it's funny. The first van to me, or, you know, my first van and my first van build was kind of like, you know, an introductory van, I guess you could say, like getting me into van life. I wanted to see if I was interested, which I've said many times already. And then when I fell in love with it and I realized it's like you're in that space for 2 years, you realize, well, I can design something better for myself and how I want to do it. I'm not saying to everybody you need to go and live in a van for 2 years before you design your dream van. What I'm saying to you is maybe go and rent or go and step inside spaces as much as you can. Be in as many vans as you can to see what you're doing, what you do like and what you don't like. When it came to seating, I wanted a few more seats. So I have an L bench now. It's compared to my first van was just one single bench. I didn't have a swivel, which I could have put on and I should have put on, but I didn't. Would have added an extra seat for somebody. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, and then my swivel 4. Now I'm extremely comfortable in here for anybody else who wants to come in. In regards to storage, I lost a lot of storage from Ghost 1 to Ghost 2. How to put this, but it was a lot. I had a whole tool shop in the back of the van in the first van. I lost pretty much all of that. I still have storage. I still have plenty of it too. Or at least for the stuff I need. Did I have to get rid of some things? Not that many, to be honest with you. I downsized a little bit, but not that much. You know, you realize what you need for clothing, and, you know, you kind of go from there. When it comes to layout and appliances, that's really where you can actually, like, if I was to take away my solar in my second van and my heating in my second van, the cost of the van is almost the same as my first van. It's roughly 10 to 15,000, okay? The reason it's actually a little bit more, if I took those other two aspects out, then the appliances got upgraded in my second van. I got a nicer fridge in my second van. I wanted a door opening instead of a chest style. The chest style is nice. I just didn't want to have something I had to come out on guides to get into it. I also was throwing around a design that my countertop would actually lift up, and that would be actually my fridge and freezer, just like a chest would be. I decided to go against that. That's all. It's not that big a deal. I just went with a different direction, and the fridge that I have I actually love, so I just went with that. Obviously, the biggest change was the electrical. This time, I hired a professional. I hired somebody that was a electrical engineer with renewable energy, and I went all out on it. And I advise everybody to do the same. But if you don't, my first go-around was 2 weeks of pretty much lots of reading, and also passing a lot of it off to my father, because I was like, some of the stuff I was reading, it looked a different language to me. It was very difficult for me to understand. I got headaches from it. It was just grueling. I remember stressing over it a lot. At the end of the day, I got all my products from Renogy. I think Renogy is a great company. I actually like them a lot. I just went with a different brand and a different model, and I liked the way that I did it now. I have a plug-and-play kit now. That was probably the biggest thing electrically wise from first van to second van. By the way, I'm in a parking lot if you guys hear noise around me. The first van, I did all the electrical myself with my dad. Obviously, it was a lot of help there, thank God. But like I said before, all the parts and components all together from Renogy was about $3,000, give or take, including the solar panels. And the solar panels I actually got from China. They were referred to me by a friend of mine that did a van build. I wanted the flexible panels. I wanted something flat. I wanted something that was low profile, which I again saved for my second van too. So it is it possible to get the flexible panels now? Yes, you can get them through companies. They finally kind of made their way over to the States, but back when I did my first van, there were no flexible panels here in the United States. The panel that I have now is a commercial grade panel, and it's a walkable solar deck. You know, if you watch my pricing video, you'll notice that it was a gift from Tiny Watt Solar, so I am very appreciative of it. But if I was to buy my own, it would still be a commercial grade panel, and it would probably be probably like a 400 watt panel, like one of those single commercial grade panels. Nothing against the 100 watt panels from Renogy. I just know that the output is a little bit better and the cells are a little bit better on these commercial grade panels that I know of. That's all. Not to say that Renogy is not like I said, I actually like Renogy a lot. I did a video with them. I still keep in contact with them. I think they're a great company, but that's who my products were on the first van. The inverter, the solar charge controller, my batteries is a big difference. The batteries in my first van were 200 amp hour gel batteries. There were 2 of them, 400 amp hours, but it's gel. So gel and AGM, you can only deplete to 50%. I have 400 amp hours of lithium, which you can deplete all the way down to 10%. So there's a big difference. I'll just put it this way. The gel batteries, each one weighed 130 pounds. So that's 260 pounds of batteries. Can promise you that my entire solar kit from Tiny Watts is, if not less, right around 260 pounds. With the inverter, the 4 batteries, because each battery is like 28 pounds or 27 pounds, and then the actual steel framing itself, like all of it together is maybe 200 pounds. Wes and I lifted it, the 2 of us, I know that. One of my biggest things was upgrading the systems from Ghost 1 to Ghost 2. I wanted the biggest power system that I could possibly afford. I've seen bigger ones, yes, they're out there, and I feel that I wanted enough battery power that I could pretty much last like 5-6 days without wearing whatsoever about my power, my solar, but I can also charge my batteries while I'm driving. So it's like, really, I've never depleted my van batteries below 70%. Crazy. Like, I don't need this much battery power, but it's nice to have. I'm completely off grid. I don't plug in, whatever. First van, I never depleted the batteries to the point of, killing them. The Dometic fridges that I had, my first one, they have an auto shut off at a certain point to not deplete the batteries anymore. It shut off a couple times, but it was during the winter time, when I didn't drive my van all that much, and it was reading the batteries and saying, hey man, not to kill your batteries, I'm just gonna shut my fridge off right now. That was pretty much all it would do. The shower is pretty much the same. I actually had the same design, and the only reason I changed it from Ghost 1 to Ghost 2 was because of the freaking window that was there when I bought the van. And I was like, well, what if I change this up a little bit? So the shower in Ghost 2 was actually a last-minute decision that I had to change on the fly on how I wanted to do design, and eventually worked out. The first van, I used like a shower pan that I bought, and then I just built around it. This one was a custom shower pan built specifically for me, and that was because I'm going to eventually be using the recirculating shower. Really, there's not really much difference, just how the shower actually operates itself, but it's really pretty much the same, the design and whatnot. I wanted an indoor shower. How many times I'm going to use it, I have no idea. More so in my second van than my first one. My first one I only used like, I don't know, 6-10 times, something like that. One of the biggest things as well was the heating. My heating, how I heat my van. We've talked about this many times, that I have radiant floor heating, and it's a 2-stage system, yada, yada, yada. My first van had a DC thermal heater. Power draw on that was just ridiculous. I could really never even use the thing, so I had to go out and get a Mr. Buddy heater. The Mr. Buddy heaters are great. I actually lived like that for, like I said, 2 years. The 2 winters that I lived out of it, they worked great. It was fine. There was no problems with it. You just make sure you have to vent. I opened up my roof fan. I never slept with it on, but it heated the space, and I thoroughly liked it. If you're trying to stay on a budget, Mr. Buddy heater is probably the way to go. It's propane style, yeah. If you have the money to spend, I would get something like the Van Life Tech system that it might break the bank for a lot of people. But again, I upgraded my van. That's all it was. It also is my hot water system. I had a hot water tank in my first van. I didn't really use it that much because, again, of the power draw. This all goes back to the electrical system. The power draw on my first van was so big that I couldn't deplete my batteries below 50%. I had 400 amp hours, but I really only had 200 amp hours of usable power. And you can go through that on a couple cloudy days. Or if you're in the wintertime, the sun's not at its highest peak. You're not going to get that much power from the sun. And if depending on how much you drive your van, it's like how much your battery is going to be charged. This is something you have to really keep in mind, and that's why I always try to tell people to invest in the power system and then build your entire van around that. And then lastly, finishes of the van. I changed up the finishes. I wanted a little more white in here, obviously. And then my first van, it was a little darker tones. I liked the staining of the wood. It was a little bit heavier, believe it or not. It's just, I don't know. I actually like the white look. It's clean, it's crisp. But I love the aesthetics of my first van too. The same guy designed both vans, but at the same time, it's really, it's how you kind of look at them, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to even say which one I liked over, which one I liked more than the last. It's hard for me to even say that. That's not easy to say. I can't say. I obviously love my second one because of the systems. The systems are by far amazing. Maybe if I put my systems in the first van and the layout that I had, maybe, but I also like the Sprinter more. You're not going to get an answer out of me which one I liked better, my first van or my second van. I do like them both, and yeah, so again, guys, you guys can find me on Instagram, all that good stuff. Check me out on the Reachable app if you have some questions, and you can actually text me one-on-one there. I just wanted to do a fun video comparing my two vans, so I will see you guys next time.